like to start talking about something new. This is a third podcast called The Aim, if you remember. And the aim is about the AI monitor. That's what it stands for. I want to talk about AI, of course. It's everywhere these days, and it starts disrupting, seemingly, a lot of things in our environment, right? So I want to talk about AI, but probably more in sort of, philosophical, taking a step back, an existential perspective, right? Rather than the technical one, right? There's a lot of podcasts, of course, as you would have seen at the moment on AI technology, on large language models, in particular, deep learning, neural networks, diffusion algorithms, all these sort of things that produce magical outcomes, right? In particular, in the space of visual arts, graphic design, even the movie industry is completely disrupted by it, right? So there's a lot to say about it. And the aim is really about monitoring what's happening in that space, but more from on a self-reflection perspective. Would that be for us as individuals, or would that be for the corporate, right? In the corporate world, what does it mean? Right? To see all these technologies flowing and entering the market. Artificial intelligence is close to my day-to-day interests because I'm a chief technology officer and a senior technology leader at the moment in financial services. So, and of course, there are a number of use cases and proof of concepts, proof of values, which are in play and in progress to try to make sense of the value it can bring and identify early adoption scenarios, right? So I'm doing that for the various customers I'm consulting with at the moment here in Switzerland, in Geneva, on a very rainy day today, and to help people think about the adoption. Oh, my rich is coming. That's great. Merci beaucoup. So yeah, it's a day-to-day topic for me, and I'm monitoring, of course, more closely from a technical perspective what's happening. But I don't want to bore you with that today. I just want to take a step back and think about what it represents today. No doubt, it's a disruption. No doubt. And suffice to see the amount of press it's making, the amount of money it's raising. I mean, we're talking about completely outrageous amounts of money, right? We'll cover these topics as we go, but in particular, if we think about companies like OpenAI, which has been funded by Microsoft in several rounds up to over $10 billion. I said billions, right? Not millions. Same thing with Anthropic, the company behind the large language model called Claude, which has been heavily invested by Amazon now. Microsoft is continuing its shopping round with this French startup called Mistral AI, and Mistral AI themselves have just yesterday, in second round of VC, raised 600 million euros, right, to fund their development. So really something is happening, something really big. It's happening in that space of digital technologies, right? We are yet to fully measure and appreciate what it's going to mean for us on a day-to-day basis. It's probably going to come through our devices, right? And at the beginning of this week, on Monday, Apple themselves had the launch of their worldwide developer conference, right? The famous WWDC, and they announced finally, after years of keeping things quiet around how they embarked machine learning and neural networks on the iPhone and on the Mac and in their different software, they finally came out with the word AI, but they called it Apple Intelligence, right? Not artificial intelligence, but Apple Intelligence. And among other things, they announced that it would allow ChatGPT to be plugged in, right? So quite interesting approach of Apple in that space. So probably with Apple and with Microsoft, which has been another early player with the Copilot offering, we are going to start, feeling and experiencing firsthand what AI means for us on a day-to-day basis. But today is the launch of the AIM, podcast. So I want to take, as I said, a more philosophical stance about what AI means. And really, if you take a step back, uh, we try to zoom out from the human history scale. And of course, the last few decades have been crazy in terms of innovation. But one would be tempted to see this AI or generative AI event and disruption as just the next step of what has happened before. Right? We know that the history of mankind, and in particular the history of human intelligence, has been made of disruptive innovations and then phases and stages and steps of innovation and building up on top of that, right? And that's the perspective I would like to take to position AI in that landscape, right? So, if you allow me, if we take the last 70 years, for instance, that's the age of computers. Okay, it started in the mid 40s with someone called Alan Turing, and Alan Turing was a very important person during the World War II, very secret and private, unknown, to be fair, but he became a war hero, de facto, and unfortunately he was recognized as such by Queen Elizabeth only in the late 90s or early 2000. Right? For years, he's been completely kept under the radar. But Alan Turing is the man who invented and built the first computer, which was called the Colossus. And he did that somewhere in London in a hidden spot called, now known as Bletchley Park. And he built the Colossus with a team of people with a very single purpose in mind, which was to crack the Enigma code. The Enigma code used by the Germans to encrypt all their radio communications back then, right? So um, Germans were well ahead of the curve in terms of encryption and technologies and radio, and they for a long time they led and won the war based on technology advancements, right, and disruptive technologies, the Panzers, the aircraft, and eventually encryption as well. So Alan Turing was embarked himself on a journey to crack this code. And in doing so, he built the first computer, the Colossus. And after the war, of course, this launched an entire momentum and a new phase of innovation around building computers, as in machines able to process information more quickly, more effectively, and in automated manner compared to humans, right? And in a systematic manner. And since then, we've seen a crazy number of innovations, and I'm not going to do that today, right? Going through that, but we can name, of course, the invention of silicium and the first integrated circuits, and the first personal computers. So big computers first with IBM, and then first personal computers with Apple and Microsoft. And then, of course, the invention of the World Wide Web and wireless networks. And more recently, we've seen, of course, a lot of new digital innovations in terms of computing power, memory storage, cloud, network. And finally, here we are today with a new form of information processing technology called generative AI or diffusion algorithms. Right? And this is all the outcome of these crazy 70 years, which have led to machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, and all that. So that's the digital age we are in, and maybe generative AI is just another step, if not a new revolution, a new phase of evolution of intelligence. If we really zoom fast backward, furthermore, before that we had the Industrial Revolution, or before the Industrial Revolution we had the age of electronics, electricity, the invention of electricity, and before that, coal and steam power, right? The Industrial Revolution. And then before that, the previous big technological revolution we can think of would be the invention of the printing press. It was massively disruptive in the 14th, 15th century, and it led to the Renaissance, and the mankind exiting somehow the Middle Age, right? The Dark Ages, right? Where before the printing press, people were copying information, reproducing it by writing information in books, tomes, scrolls. That such were the media storing information until the invention of the printing press, right? So printing press allowed for the copy and the replication at large scale of knowledge and information, and that was definitely a decisive moment in human history. To the point, for instance, that as an example, the Ottoman Empire, who refused for years, for decades, to allow the printing press to progress and to spread in their empire, right? Afraid that it was somehow sinful towards, copying, reproducing the word of God, for instance, and also maybe it was leading to a lot of free thinking and thinking differently from the regime, right? They fell backward. They were leading the world so far, the Ottoman Empire, compared to medieval Europe, entangled and bogged down through feudal regimes and wars and the Crusades and all that. The Ottoman Empire, not embracing the printing press, collapsed, fell back 200 years. Right, once Western Europe was starting to expand knowledge, and this led to the age of the light, the Lumière, right, and the Renaissance and all that, right. So printing press was the big one. And before that, if you take a step back, in terms of big events, there would have been the invention of writing, of course. So again, as you realize, it's again along the lines of the theory of information, how to store and record knowledge and information, right? So the invention of writing and the code of law. Before that, maybe the invention of will. Before that, maybe the invention of fire, right? And the invention of agriculture somewhere in the middle. Dividing, prehistory from the Neolithic age, where humans started to settle because they invented agriculture and animal husbandry and large crops scale, and the first cities appeared, right, and which led to the invention of writing, right. So try to put in your mind, and maybe I'll put a picture there of the scale of human history, ranging from first humans in 3 million years ago, and then the invention of fire somewhere a million years ago, and then progressively all this technology, and then each next innovation building up and on the previous one, and somehow a sense of accelerated innovation as well, right? It was one innovation leads to the second one, and then quickly to the next one. Okay, so here we are today. We're there, part of the digital age and the IT or computer revolution. Part more broadly, a consequence of the age of the electromagnetic age, so to speak. Part itself of the industrial revolution. Right? So some people, like Jan LeCun, for instance, from Meta, would argue that this appearance of the generative AI is now a new revolution, just like the printing press, because it touches to language and to knowledge and to information, and in a sense, it's really an incredible new way to store information, and not just to store it, but to crunch it, right? To compress it to a size which is absolutely baffling when you see the small size of the pieces of software we're using today to virtually answer any question, right? That previously required the entire Library of Congress, the entire British Encyclopedia Britannica, the British Encyclopedia, the entire web, World Wide Web, and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of computers to store information, making up Google and Wikipedia and storing all these websites, right? So today we've reached a stage where through neural networks, deep learning, diffusion, and generative algorithms, we've managed to take a big slice of the internet, of this information, call it 10 or 100 terabytes of information. We talk about the measure of information. It's huge. And crunching that into a sort of base of vectors, with a little piece of software code in C, generally in the C language, which is able then to process an input, a prompt, and to spit out as an answer something which is most likely, most probable. Right? It's like magic. It's like suddenly, we've invented a crystal ball or a magic wand. And then suffice to see all the iconography used today in all these uh, SaaS platforms, softwares, and online platforms that you can see where there is very often a little one with 3 stars. It's magic. And it really is. Right? That you ask a question in a very natural manner using natural language, which is a first as well, and you get an articulate answer, which is most likely not only relevant but very good. Although even if sometimes it might be false, it could be an hallucination. You've heard this word maybe already, and we'll talk about it, right? About this idea of hallucination. So this is what we're looking at. What is possibly a fourth industrial revolution, so to speak, after coal, steam power, electromagnetism, invention of computers. Now we're entering potentially a new age of where AI, or whatever it is, we're stepping into the world of a world where the intelligence becomes commodity. The intelligence and knowledge becomes a commodity, and it's generalized. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It really is, right? It could be in my iPod, it could be in my device. I ask a question in natural language, and I get an answer, which is most likely very relevant. And to do that, I don't have to do any typing or coding anymore, right? So we're also entering an age where software is becoming a commodity and is even disappearing under the hood, right? So we're transitioning from an age of cultural intelligence, where intelligence was managed by cultures, in libraries, on computers nowadays, through art, physical art, and we're entering an age where it's generalized at planetary scale, and it's completely immaterial, but it's ubiquitous, omnipresent. I can summon it anytime, anywhere, and in seconds. Okay, so that's a bit of an introduction, and again, all that is the outcome of these big disruptions in computer sciences. There's the hardware side and the software side of things. And on the hardware side, it's not to no one's surprise that we see today companies like NVIDIA, who are just a few days ago have become the largest stock exchange capitalization in the world, just going over the threshold of $3 trillion valuation. NVIDIA, which started to create chips for computer graphics back in the days for gaming. But they realized along the way that all these new computer graphic units, graphic processing units, GPUs, you see this acronym, they can do actually another job very well, right? Parallelized computing. It serves really well the AI algorithms. Right? So hardware, big companies are there, top of the stock exchange, they are hardware companies. If they're not hardware companies, what are they? Well, they are software, and that's Microsoft, that's Alphabet, that's Amazon, the largest cloud computers network in the world right now, more than an e-commerce platform. Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Apple. Apple is a bit of a crossbreed, right? There's hardware and software, and that's probably what makes their power. So it's really about the silicon and the software, which finally allow mankind today to process the new oil, to crunch it, to pressure it, and that's data, the data oil, right? And that's probably the other trigger and the other important component that allowed for this disruption unfolding to happen, which is the advent of big data, right? Before everything was based on physical mediums, right? Could even be, discs, tapes, books, printed materials, you name it. But now all that is digital. It's information encoded in bits, right? In using binary code, right? So and it's spread on the network. It's available. It's reachable, and it's not just this preliminary or pre-existing knowledge of mankind, but it's also all the user-generated content, like the one I'm producing right now, right? I'm generating this content, and it's going to end up on YouTube. Boom, right? That's additional user-generated content ending up on the web, and that maybe me one day will be a tiny part, an atomic part of the training of the next generation large language model, right? So that's really interesting, and I think in that sense, it's indeed a new industrial revolution we're going through. It's probably a disruptive innovation, just like printing press was 6 centuries ago that we're going through, and we have to understand what it means for us, right? Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA, said a few days ago that very relevantly that we're entering the age of AI factories as opposed to previously software factories, for instance, or hardware factories, right? So AI factories where the input is prompts in natural language and the output is tokens. The new commodity nowadays is going to be tokens, right? That tokens which can be text, again, so information, which can be images, and I will invite you to play with Midjourney, for instance, or DALI, or Sora. I mean, we're still waiting for Sora to go public. Sora is this incredible video generation engine from OpenAI, which seems to be absolutely fascinating, right? But yeah, so token factory, right? So it's going to transform all industries. It's going to transform probably healthcare, automotive, telecoms, everywhere in a lot of regards. So there will be a technological impact. There will be economic impact, of course, right? And with hopes that it's going to help us entering an era of abundance on the one hand, but also fears that on the other hand is going to usher in an age of mass unemployment, right, for humans who are becoming redundant, right? So employment and skills anyways are going to shift, right? Because instead of having to code software moving forward, of course, we will always need software engineers and coders, right? But much less, because now, AI is able to produce code much faster and better than humans, right? So we will need less coders, but we will need AI specialists able to prompt these AI factories, and that's why there's a new job today, which is called a prompt engineer, right? Fancy title for to get big biggies today in the industry. I don't know how long it's going to last, but if you can become a prompt engineer, right? That's a new job. So yeah, it will be interesting to discuss this shift in skills and employment and training. One big hope is that, anyways, across the board, it's going to enable better decision making, right? Because as we know, we're talking about making an informed decision. Making an informed decision is important. It's almost redundant, right? Nobody wants to make an uninformed decision. An uninformed decision would be like a knee-jerk decision, right? It's just instinctive, intuitive. No, what is really great to make is an informed decision, which means that you consider information in the context of your question to make the best decision. And this is where AI can be incredibly helpful, right? To bring you right now, right here, right now, the information you need to make the decision, presuming that this information is going to be accurate and true, or largely true and authentic, rather than biased or simply an hallucination. That's possible. We'll talk about it, right? We'll talk about questions like the ethical and governance challenges that raises, right, in the space of education, right, and also in the space of responsibility and decision making, precisely, right. So people are going to be able to, use the scapegoat approach and say, "Oh, yeah, it's not me. I listened to my AI, right? Who told me to do so, right? So Claude or ChatGPT." No, we need of course, to discuss that. And we also need to discuss the question of content ownership, copyright. There's so many discussions at the moment along the lines of intellectual property and how OpenAI and Google and everyone really in that scene has been stealing content, right? Grabbing pieces of the internet, not worrying too much about IP consideration and just getting the algorithm to crunch the information to the point that some artists can now be copied, right? So you can ask, for instance, to Midjourney or to Dali to create you an image or a painting in the style of Van Gogh, the painter, right? So if you're an illustrator today and all your art gets sucked in a large language model, chances are is that I will be able to talk to this model and say, can you draw me a design of this and this and that in the style of this illustrator? And there you go. So that's really a little bit more disturbing, right, in that regard. So where does that leave us right now, you and me, as we're talking about this topic? We'll talk about questions about our everyday life too, right? Because with this rapid evolution, we have to ponder about a number of questions about our work, right? As I said, is it going to take my job? Am I going to stay relevant in the job market? What are the skills most valuable, right? In particular, to enter this AI-driven economy. I'm a parent, and of course, it raises questions about my kids. And what does it mean for them to have access to all these large language models, which give them information 90% of the time true and authentic and correct, but sometimes fraud. So, what does that mean for them to form their critical thinking and their judgment, right? But at the other end of the spectrum, can AI also make education more accessible and more personalized, right? There's so many people, young people, failing at school or falling behind because they are part of a generic education system, which is one size fits all. And with AI, we can hope that, for instance, and we could talk about autistic children, for instance, or simply, or dyslexic kids, where they need different learning path, right, to learn skills and knowledge, right? Same thing for health, of course, right? I don't want to go too far right now in these discussions because we'll explore them, right? But we'll cover politics as well, governance, we'll cover social issues, we'll cover the psychological impact it's going to have on us, right? Because the lines are getting blurred between what's real, what's not, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. How is it going to impact human relationships, right? Am I going to have an AI friend, an AI psychologist, an AI counselor, an AI girlfriend or boyfriend, right? There's been sci-fi books and movies about this topic, but now it's there, right? So, and more generally speaking, is AI going to lead to more surveillance of society, right? Let's stop here because I start having a little bit of a vertigo here, right? But what I'd like to say is that I'd like to come back to the idea of AI, right? We're talking a lot about artificial intelligence. Let's name it. That's how you would read AI most of the time, but if you're an Apple employee, because it's going to be Apple intelligence, right? But let's talk about it for a minute. I don't think there is anything intelligent today in the technology we are being served. It's not intelligence. Why? So again, it's vector databases which have crunched massive amounts of information to perform a probabilistic approach and generative approach or a diffusion approach to the most likely output to give to a prompt. But at the end of the day, you could say that these machines and these algorithms, they are actually, I believe the bird wants to eat my lunch. They are dreaming machines. That's what they are trained for, to dream. And if you think about it, you would think about the way you dream when you fall asleep at night. You reprocess heaps of information from your previous days and weeks and months, and your brain generates new patterns. probable, plausible, but sometimes completely crazy. It's the same thing. And we'll see. We'll dive into it, right? And it's not me saying that these software and machines and computers are dreaming machines, hallucination machines. It's Elias. What's his name again? One of the founders of OpenAI has written a very long technical course on LLMs, large language models, and that's his conclusion. We are building a dream machine. Okay, so there's no intelligence really in that. Is it artificial? But yes, of course it is. What's artificial? I mean, it's a machine, right? So instead of artificial intelligence, today I would speak about dreaming machines, which reminds me of this book from Philip K. Dick titled "Do Robots Dream About Electric Ships?" Right? Which is actually the original title of Blade Runner. Right? Philip K. Dick, Blade Runner, the replicants, humans who try to think like humans. We're not there yet, clearly not. These technologies, these software, these computers are not intelligent. They cannot reason, they can plan, they cannot create novelty yet, right? And it's not me saying that again. Plenty of people like Jan LeCun, for instance, the head of AI at Meta, is a proponent of that. Or yeah, I'll name a few more sources, right? So, but talking about intelligence, what it does is that it's going to affect our intelligence, or human intelligence, right? Um, and that's more interesting. And our intelligence is not artificial, right? Authentic, right? Even if it's not always the best, processing problems and making decisions. But what's happening with this technology, in my eyes, is that this is going to augment our intelligence. We are going to become augmented humans. We already are augmented by a lot of technology around us, right, all the time. But this is going to augment our intelligence, right? So there's so many things now that potentially we don't need to bother learning again, right? Because it can be summoned or memorized. It can be summoned at the flick of a switch, so to speak, or the tap of a device. So really, AI is lifting the floor for everyone. With in particular with open source initiatives such as Stability AI, such as what Meta is doing with Llama 3, or Mistral with Mistral AI. I mean, we can be so grateful for these companies to propose open source large language models, right? Free for all. This is lifting the floor of intelligence for everyone, right? Things which were incredibly tedious, complicated, time consuming to do before, even if you had access to the internet, to Google, and to some pieces of software, now are becoming so easy. They are just a prompt or two prompts away from you, right? So in that sense, what I'm looking at with this new disruption is intelligence augmentation for humans, for us, right? So I find this concept of augmented intelligence very compelling and constructive, right? To follow and to monitor the evolution of these technologies, and also it emphasizes more on the collaborative approach than the replacement one, right? We are not going to be replaced by machines, at least not just yet, right? But definitely we are going to be able to collaborate with machines so effectively that we don't have to talk machine language anymore. Remember all these lines of assembly code, C language, even Python, even modern languages, they are still tedious, right? There's this syntax, lines, you need to compile, package, deploy. No, now we can use our own language. So it's like if the machines had made the hard work to come towards us, and actually the machines now have trusted human language, right? They have taken possession, they have mastered our language. That's what it means, and that's why we call them large language models, right? Because it's large because they encompass all languages and all the vocabulary and syntax and grammar and conceptual signification of each languages. But yeah, that allows us now to have a natural interface with them, right? I've got a natural interface to this computer I'm recording on today. I can talk to Siri, even if it's still a bit dumb, I can tell Tim Cook. But I can talk to her and ask this device to do work for me. I don't need to code anymore, right? So it's quite interesting. And I like with the aim, with the augmented intelligence monitor, as well as the artificial intelligence monitor, to analyze with you over the next few weeks what this means, right? Um, so yeah, this complementarity of machines with us rather than them replacing us, I think it's a very very positive and exciting perspective. It's going to extend our capabilities and it's going to make knowledge and information and creativity ultimately more accessible to the masses, right? So again, lifting the floor for everyone. You and me can use today ChatGPT or Claude 3 or Mistral AI as a sounding board and as a sparring partner or as a brainstorm partner for any conversation we may have. We can use DALI and Midjourney for creative visual brainstorms about logos, pictures. That's, that's really amazing. It's unprecedented, right? So, and it's going hopefully to help us also tackling complex problems, right? The multivariate, nonlinear problems such as weather control, such as social and political predictions, this kind of thing, and maybe also to an extent, hardcore problems like genetic diseases, solving, finding new molecules to cure different conditions, things which would have taken years previously with our previous generation of computers and with our sole human intelligence. Now with AI are going to be augmented and therefore accelerated, right? So so there will be pros of this intelligence augmentation, and then there will be criticisms. So we'll try to cover all the perspectives, right? We'll try also to address a very interesting debate about this perspective of AGI. Now, you will hear this word of artificial generalized intelligence, which would mean that at some point in the future, there would be a potentially super intelligence, a sentient one that would surpass mankind as a whole and eventually take over, right? So that's also the theory of the singularity, as it's called. But even if we don't look that far, we could look at intelligence augmentation as also making us a little bit, crippled and disabled with our faculties, natural faculties, because we could become over-reliant on technology going forward, right? And lazy. And this reminds me a little bit this scene in in Wall-E, sorry, the little robot that cleans the planet Earth after mankind has flown off to retreat on a cruise ship in orbit somewhere, and they have become couch potatoes, right? And everything is done by machines, right? So they're fat, they're lazy, they're dumb. They can do anything without the help of machines. So this is indeed a concern that we have to talk about, this over-reliance on technology. And also, there's going to be a huge shift in society, right? Displacements of people, of workers, of jobs, and of entire fields of the economy are going to be disrupted. So, anyways, we'll have to see, right? But we'll use this framework of augmented intelligence approach to discuss all these questions, right? Every now and then we'll dive into technology and technical things as well. That would be interesting for some of you. But really, primarily, we'll stay focused on a human-centric, more philosophical approach. That's the proposition with this podcast. And look, I hope you'll stick with me in the next few weeks to continue this conversation, right? So this is called The Aim. I'm Lucas Chalamel. I'm an AI and technology enthusiast, but I'm also a human being, just like you, which is wary of peering into the future to see what's good for us and bad, right? And gear ourselves and prepare for it, right? So, but in the meantime, be curious, keep creative, and we'll speak again soon.